I'm here with Rhazé Chetham. We're here at the Peabody Conservatory, and I'm thrilled to be talking with you a little bit today, and that you'll be sharing some music with us at our Evensong celebrating the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And I'm particularly thrilled that you've written a new piece that will be heard today. And so I just want to give things over to you to talk about whatever you want to talk about, with particularly about the music that you've chosen to offer, and especially the piece of music that you wrote.
Certainly so. I'm offering a couple different things. One is a song set by John Musto, who's actually a living American composer. 4 songs from his Shadow of the Blues, as well as 3 pieces from Leonard Bernstein's Songfest, 2 of which are the baritone solos, and 1 is a duet for baritone and mezzo soprano. And then, of course, the mysterious new piece that I've written, which I'm very excited about, also with poetry and text by Warson Shire. I guess first and foremost, the Musto set was kind of funny. I was looking for repertoire to do for a recital, and I was talking to my teacher, Bill Sharp, about how I like the theme for my recital. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't just doing the standard baritone repertoire. You know, it's beautiful stuff. I love you, Schubert. I do. But I think that there's so much music that not only goes unrepresented or underrepresented, but composers or poets whose work go underrepresented
Absolutely.
as well. And John Musto, I think, certainly has some critical acclaim, but this is a song set or cycle that I don't know that I've ever heard performed live before, ever, in my entire life. And the poetry for Shadow of the Blues is by Langston Hughes. So I really wanted to, if I could, make my entire recital kind of a reflection of my time, not only on Earth, but particularly at Peabody. So I wanted to make sure I found poetry or music by Black artists, by queer artists, by non-American artists. And so that's how I found the Musto set.
That's great.
And then when it came to the Bernstein pieces, of course, this past fall season I was featured in Bernstein Mass with Marin Alsop conducting, and that was Bernstein mania.
Right.
Like he's still in my head right now.
It's hard to get him out of there, especially with something as loud and clangorous and big and crazy as Masses.
Exactly. And so it almost seemed like a natural next step to look at some of his other works for voice. And I came across Songfest. My teacher also kind of led me slightly in this direction. He was like, I think there's a Bernstein. You should look at some Bernstein stuff. And so I came across it. In particular, the 3 pieces that I'll be performing this coming Sunday are The Penny Candy Store Beyond the L, with the poet, I believe, is Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And then To What You Said, with poetry by Walt Whitman, and then Langston Hughes makes a reprise, and this time in conjunction with June Jennings, with the duet I Too Sing America / OK Negroes. The Ferlinghetti poem is interesting because it's very deceiving. It talks about a young child in a penny candy store, and he's trying to choose between jelly beans and all types of candy that he sees, but really it's a big allegory for the end of times in which we find ourselves, which in particularly this country's political climate, etc., I find that it can be really difficult to see a way out. And in the first place, Songfest is for sextet with orchestra. So I've pulled, again, 2 solos. That's one of the baritone solos. The bass / baritone solo, To What You Said, with poetry by Walt Whitman. That is something a bit more intimate and a bit more personal. And of course, Walt Whitman is, in his own right, a queer icon for a lot of youth and a lot of adults too, in the United States and abroad. And I found that it was a nice kind of foil to the previous song. We are in the end of times and we don't know necessarily what we're going to do, but for as long as we can have intimate connections, whether that be with literal brothers and sisters or the brothers and sisters and siblings that we form over time, that can kind of give us solace. And then the duet is kind of interesting because I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes is again, its own piece of iconography at this point. And Bernstein has put it next to June Jennings' OK Negroes, almost as if this is kind of like tongue-in-cheek response to I Sing America. In I Do Sing America, the poetic protagonist seeks to have a seat at the table and says that he will demand his seat, he will have his seat, and the people who denied him before will be ashamed. But the way Bernstein kind of, like Cohn says, sets a poem on X is kind of interesting because the mezzo-soprano vocal protagonist is almost wagging her finger at the baritone and saying, well, are you going to keep asking for this seat? Like, okay then, let's go, keep asking, keep doing this little dance for people who aren't actually going to give you what you want. So it's almost like, it's a call to arms to rally against, with the intimacy from the Whitman, against the end of times in which we find ourselves. So I kind of wanted to present that in a way, because it's its own narrative, I think, of my own life, and it has the potential to be a universal narrative in microcosm in just 3 songs.
That's a huge swath covered, and of course, you know, it's very much like Bernstein to sort of take these huge issues and just try to corral them in it. But you know, so often that presents just a lot of power and a lot of agency for you as a performer to just sort of grab it and go wild with it. So so I think that this will be great. So this leads us up to your piece.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about this piece, which is for soloist and chorus?
Yes, it is for solo soprano and chamber ensemble voice. And I'm super excited, first of all, to hear Taylor Hilary Boykins premiere it. I mean, a force.
She's wonderful.
A force.
She actually, for return viewers, she sang recital at St. David's last season, and is a wonderful artist.
Seriously.
So, yeah.
But I'm not going to lie, I came upon Wasan's poetry when she did the poetic interludes for Beyonce's Lemonade, and I'm a huge Beyonce fan. Hi, Mom! And so I would listen to the album, and then I found myself not listening to the album and just reading the poetry, and then I found myself just looking for her poetry, and then I came across this from her, I guess it's like a pamphlet, teaching my mother how to give birth, and at once I just knew there was an oral space that this needed to occupy that I don't think had come to light yet. And Wasan's poetry is interesting because she uses geography and astrology and astronomy, all for sexual metaphor, sensual metaphor, a metaphor for political refugees. I mean, she is really extrapolating a lot of information to kind of put together. And I thought it would be a nice way to end the program, because I feel like oftentimes, especially as a black person or a black queer person, I feel like I have to be the champion of my cause and of my life, and I have to always rally, and I always have to do these things. And obviously there's a lot of work that I have to do, that we all have to do. But Grandfather's Hands, I feel like, is an opportunity for rest, is an opportunity for peace. And I thought that fit with the theme of MLK in particular, because of course his legacy is that of a champion who often fought to his own defeat sometimes for others. And the unnamed vocal protagonists of Grandfather's Hands, I feel like, do the same thing. Their life that is covered across the course of the poem, and thus the song, is its own legacy, and is able to fight in a way that people don't expect, which is just being themselves, which is just being in love. And of course, I could talk for hours about the deeper metaphors in Wasan's poetry, but I think that's one of the main takeaways that I have from the poem, and that I want people to have from the performance of it, which is just, again, that sometimes it's not about the rallying and the activism, and of course all of the stuff is very important. But taking the time to be intimate with yourself and be intimate and share that intimacy with another person. And I decided to set it for no instruments, just because a piano can communicate a lot of things, but it cannot talk yet.
Right.
Pianos can't talk yet. And I really wanted people to feel connected to the vocal protagonist and to the implicit musical persona in the vocal accompaniment. Because there's just so much rich and just illuminating words that I really wanted to communicate to.
Well, I think that you do it really well. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to offer this along with you and with Taylor in this in this recital. And I think that you touch on a lot of things that are very near and dear and relevant to what many of us are experiencing in the world today. That not just a sense of striving for justice, but how do you balance the realities of just being human amidst that, and having, as you said, there's of fighting not just against injustice, but fighting the fatigue of doing that and trying to find a way to maintain humanity and, as you say, intimacy. And I think that this will be a wonderful encapsulation of so many things. And I'm just so thrilled that you'll be offering this music, and we look forward to sharing this with you this Sunday at the Recital and Evensong, celebrating the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, 4:30 p.m. on January 20th. And Rhazé, it's been wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.